Welcome back and thank you for staying with KTN Prime. My guests are still here with me, Odoyo Owidi, political analyst, and Maliba Arnold, party leader, Progress Plus Alliance. Of course, before we went for that particular break, we're talking about the reconstitution of IEBC. Odoyo, coming to you, I mean, they have a full in-tray and there is by-elections to be held. Looking at the by-elections, perhaps is it going to be a litmus test, not just for the 2027 general election, but also for these partnerships and agreements that we've seen being formed?
I think we are actually going to have a mini general election. We have several seats vacant, and we are going to have a test for the new office, but they will be lucky because they are going to find the secretariat in place with all the people to run the show as they watch and receive the results. But nevertheless, when we are going to get to the general election, that is where the litmus test should be. But I don't find any problem whoever is on that seat as a commissioner, because the rules have been filtered until we now have the best. You remember there was a time when Uhuru was going for the election of 2017. We had to change the electoral laws months to the elections, and we used them. But what is important for me in this whole thing is to advise Kenyans. If you keep on running to the courts about the commissioners, about this election system, about who is there, we are going to have the general election be done any other date after August. In 2013, we extended the elections from August to March the following year. Because if we are already saying that it will be illegal to have the election without the limitation of boundaries, and we are having a time limit on when to delimitate those boundaries, then we are going to extend the election date. And the very people who are running to court will also run to court again. So we are going to have a vicious circle of running to court again and again. These very people are the same ones who will say we are breaking the law, we are not following the constitutions. So these small issues that they make them run to court again and again, they must stop it. Let us have the commissioners, let us have an EBC that is working, and let us go to the elections, starting with the by-elections.
But Doyo, where do you expect Kenyans to go? They already feel like the legislative arm of government is an appendage of the executive. So then, if they don't run to courts...
We are not going to run this country on feelings. We are going to run this country on the laws that are in the statute books. So if there's somebody there, you know, Kenyans are generally people who are very emotional. People who want to support you because either you come from their clan or they hate the other side and so on. The truth of the matter, if the law is followed to the letter, that is all we want to do. We want to don't go about what people are feeling. People are feeling that selecting the commissioners is not going to go well because the person sitting on that seat as they are being elected is a person they don't like. I told you when Uhuru and Raila were in a handshake and they appointed the Cherera 4, nobody went to court, but that is the time I thought everything was going wrong.
Can we just probably put this to bed this way?
Yes.
The election cannot be postponed. And I'll dare say this on TV. If you dare postpone this election, you will actually be calling for a revolution. You will not be able to have a country after that. It is impossible. Because Kenyans have got priorities. Priority number one is to send William Ruto home. That cannot wait. Boundary delimitation can wait, but William going home cannot wait. Number two, Kenyans want to send every MP who voted yes on 25th June. That is a national priority. Boundaries delimitation can actually wait. So I can tell you 100%, no one is going to actually sit here and tell you that boundary delimitation is important than sending the MPs who voted yes on 25th of June. All of those are actually going home. There is a national consensus on that. Number two, that William Ruto must go home, that is not even something you actually have to talk about. So we will do boundary delimitation after that, because the national priority is actually to disinfect the spaces of national governance by doing those two things urgently. Even if it were possible, we will do it in this December. It's only that we have to wait until 2027. But the country is ready to do this particular business even tomorrow.
But Odoyo seems to be disagreeing with you.
Let me say something.
Yeah.
You know, when Maliba said it is impossible to have the election extended, I thought he was going to quote some law or some section of law, the constitution. But just to say that Kenyans...
I quoted the people, we the people.
At Kenyans wants President William Ruto to go home. I told you this country is not going to be run on emotions. It is not going to be run on feelings.
So
it is going to be run on the law.
The concerns of Kenyans are not legit?
That law says that we will vote in 2027.
Very serious about Maliba.
Okay.
When the former DP was launching his party, the DCP, it sounds like a fertilizer, but nevertheless, that party, when he launched it, when he was asked the manifesto, he said that Ruto one term. So I have also realized Malibas also is Ruto one term. I think these are just political party, one political party that has been split into several pieces. So they will come together the last minute to say, we have come together now to execute our manifesto, which happens to be the same.
But you can defend yourself before
it's important to say this. Okay. I will not even take my breath and say that whatever he said is offending. The national priority number one, actually, if a leopard comes into your house, even if you are a Muslim or a Christian and ikifika saa mbili lazima uombe, and a leopard is in the house, you will actually postpone the prayer, expel the leopard, and then come back and pray. God will understand. We are in a national emergency. And the first thing is to expel William Ruto. The second thing is to send every MP who voted yes on 25th of June. Then we will come back and do housekeeping and talk about the manifesto. There is no bigger manifesto than the Constitution. Look at the preamble. It speaks about what we want. Let no one give you a lot of English and economic terms around manifestos. Article 43 is all you need. If there is if the Constitution was a Bible, there is only one chapter that you need to go and read.
Okay.
It is called Article 43 of the Constitution. Hizi stories zingine zote ni stories za jaba. In Article 43, everything is there. Ukitaka kuongeza kachumbari unafanya Article 10 about national values on how you achieve Article 43. Hizi zingine anakuambia ni stories za jaba.
Okay.
The national priority is to expel William Ruto and to send every MP who voted yes on 25th of June.
That is what is written in Article 43. The national priority is to expel.
I'm saying,
let me tell you, my
we
brother.
cannot achieve Article 43 with these two groups there.
Yeah.
We can't. You cannot. So as it is today, people are alone. I know on 29th, I think they will be having the National Prayer Breakfast. We are organizing the People's National Prayer Breakfast because we have no representative. We have no leaders. So we will pray as a people without a shepherd.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want us to move on from this particular issue. And let's talk about the public sale. What are coming to you? I mean, we saw, was it on Monday or Tuesday, government spokesperson Isaac Mwaura just say that the public sale is now in the office of the head of public service, that is Felix Koskei. And just today, he made a complete U-turn. Isn't that fishy? I mean, you'd expect the government spokesperson to know where the public sale is.
There is nothing fishy about that. Nothing really fishy. The head of public service happens to be the head of all those civil servants, including the AG herself. So, your boss having a document or an instrument which is supposed to be have, it is not different from you still having it. So, if for any reason or the other, the public seal was in the hands or in the custody of the head of public service, there is nothing really wrong, but the user is the AG. And I think whatever happens, whenever it happens, it is the AG who actually puts public seal onto any document.
But let's not forget, this is not just any symbol. It has the power.
Yes, it does.
And just the other day, we saw the former AG, Justin Muturi, say that the transition was made because the government wants to avoid checks and legal censure from the AG.
Let me tell you, Muturi, whatever Muturi said after he had been fired is null and void. It's not valid. Just like Gachagua. Anything he says after he had been fired. Because if you use both, you will be having a zero-sum game. Because everything that Gachagua used to believe in and used to say, he made that complete U-turn when he was fired. And so is Muturi. They made a complete U-turn after they exited government. Gachagua would say, a person who would oppose the affordable housing is a madman. When he was fired, he said, affordable housing is the worst thing that can happen to this country. It's a fraud. Such people, are you going to believe them? And when are you going to believe them? After they were fired or before? So I wanted to make it easy for them, Muturi, Gachagua, Maleba, and everybody else. While Maleba was still in UDA, while Gachagua was still in UDA, while Muturi was still subscribing to UDA, whatever they said then was the truth.
But that doesn't happen with all politicians.
It's a jilted lover's statement.
Change tune once you change sides.
Anyway,
yeah.
Who was in UDA more than Kenyans? There were so many Kenyans who voted for this government, and it's those Kenyans that are telling you they don't like it. So these are people who put their sovereignty into the hands of a small organization called UDA and an individual's hands. So those people have changed their mind. What about we who work for them? I don't think that politicians should actually see themselves as above the people. They literally are workers for the people. So when people speak, you honestly ought to listen. Anyway, on the matters public seal, and I need to talk about, there are two seals here,
sure,
and we need to actually be very clear. Article 9 speaks about the public seal. Then Article 135 speaks about the President's seal. What people have actually not realized is that if you look at Executive Order number 2 and Executive Order number 3 as issued by President William Ruto, it has consistently spoken about, and you need to check that, look at all those executive orders. It has actually been, when it describes the functions and what the head of public service should be in charge, it has continuously, twice by the way, Executive Order number 2 and number 3, they speak about the head of public service being the custodian of the public sea against the law. But those executive orders, by the way, have actually been carrying that particular information. But be that as it may, you know, what we are seeing here is like, realistically, it looks like the head of public service is the one who keeps the seal, but then the AG is the one who has the key. So when the AG wants to use, he goes to see the head of public service and then he uses. Okay, that's on a light note. But let's get it this way. One of those headlines the Standard needs to run is actually to have Mwaura's image with his Kenyan scarf and then ask, who does this man speak for? Does he really speak for this government? Because he rushes with information, then he comes back looking like somebody who really does not know what he's doing. Like today, why was he speaking in a rush, correcting, when the other day he put out a very strong statement saying that the transfer of custody of the public seal was done according to law. A lot of us asked him, which law? He couldn't respond to that.
Yeah.
There was, of course, a proposal at some point where this mischief, you see, like the executive order went ahead of time, both 2 and 3, they went ahead, and then the law was supposed to be changed retrogressively to then be to align with executive orders. That proposal was taken to Parliament. It was defeated.
Yeah.
But somehow I think in practice, these guys actually already took away the seal. And what has been happening here is that they've been trying to move out. That's why Mwaura had the law as written in the mind of the administration, huko nyuma. And then there's the real law.
Okay.
So Mwaura also needs to make up his mind whether he speaks for himself or he speaks for government. And if he speaks for government, which government does he speak for? It looks like, you know, there's government within government. Because as he spoke, I'm so sure he had taken instruction and consulted elsewhere, and he had been told, we have got that seal courtesy of the law. Then Mwaura comes out, because I don't think Mwaura is a madman. Somewhere, someplace, somebody must actually have told him that, because Mwaura does not manufacture his own information. He gets it from the structures of government. As a government spokesperson, he gets it from. So at that particular point, the government had already transferred the seal.
Okay.
And now he's gone back to where the law is, because now clearly the Standard was right and Mwaura was wrong. So Mwaura has come back, and do you know what he's done? He's blaming the media. We really need to get over that. And by the way, did he have to speak about seals? He has got so many things to speak about. How he wants to double up into all these small things, that is why he needs to decide whom he speaks for. Because clearly he wasn't speaking for government 3 days ago when he spoke about the seal and some imaginary law. And today he was speaking for the same government. I think the best person who should have done the clarification should have been the AG herself. Okay,
because Kenyans are asking, and I get where Maliba is coming from. This is something that is enshrined in the Constitution. But here we are, we saw the amendment bill, that is the National Administration's Laws Amendment Bill, that sought to make that transfer. What was the need for it in the first place?
Whenever you see the government or whoever else is trying to amend certain laws, there has to be an abuse of the older one. You know, when you have a government where you have a CS that is not working in tandem with the cabinet or with the president, then you start worrying about the use of important documents, important tools like the seal. So this is why the boss has to come in and say, we are going to have custody of these tool, but we are going to have the rightful person, which is the AG, use it, apply it to wherever it is supposed to be. But we are putting a lot of issues on a very small issue. Custody of the seal.
It's not a small issue.
It is the use. I am sure people are looking. You know, like Maleba was saying, oh, Kenyans have... When did you do referendum to know what Kenyans are thinking now? You haven't done anything.
We consume data.
It is your heart, even as we do.
Last time you and I are on the same side, we ignored the data that was being fed to us. You saw what happened.
So you're saying you've seen the light, Maliba?
It's not a matter of seeing the light. Look at this. It's only a fool who doesn't change his mind. Plus, my friend, I cannot be in fire and stand there to be consumed. I'm not an offering. I'm not going to be a burnt offering. Just for purposes of actually making him feel good about it. I have actually allowed him to accept to be a burnt offering. And by the way, Mwalimu, I'm actually not happy. These people degazetted you on Friday.
So where is that one?
No, let's not get personal. Let's just move on to other issues.
No,
Maliba, you're getting personal.
Maliba has freedom of speech, but nevertheless, you know, Maliba, when you say that only a fool never changes his mind, that is a very lazy way of defending.
No, it's a very strong.
Because a fool must also change.
Kenyans changed their mind about this regime.
Even you who's not a fool will only change your mind if there is a reason to change.
So you're saying
if there is no reason for me to change, are you going to brand me a fool when I don't have a reason to change my mind?
We are not the ones who wrote that particular piece of wisdom.
No, it is a lazy way of giving a defense
you cannot,
of not changing.
Just because it does not sound good in your ears, it's not lazy. No.
It is a lazy way of defending yourself.
All right, gentlemen, let's move on. Let's talk about other issues. Just today, the former Prime Minister and equally ODM leader Raila Odinga pushed for constitutional change, and what he's pushing for is to have Senate become the upper house in Parliament. Maliba, I'll start with you. What is the ramifications of all this if we go that direction?
Number one, if you are to look at law specifically, the Senate is already, on many accounts, the upper house. If the president is actually the symbol of national unity, is the head of state, is citizen number one, he is the person in whom we actually put our sovereignty in. The final house that decides whether he goes home or not, the trial chamber that actually sends the president home, the way we saw Rigiji going home, is actually the Senate.
Yeah.
And for me, if you have to look at executive power from that particular end, I already look at I look at the Senate as the upper house. It's just been lazy. They've actually never just pulled up their socks to actually work proper.
Okay.
But I'm looking at this differently. Of course, Raila Odinga is pushing that members of parliament need to drop NGCDF. I am one of those people, the disciples. Even when I was working on the other side, I kept on saying, even when the president did some memoranda and told MPs they need to find ways of ensuring that CDF becomes legal, blah, blah, I still believe CDF killed our parliament completely. Because Parliament, for me, is about representation and oversight. The legislation part of it is the enabling part of these two functions. For me, those are the biggest.
Okay.
So we have got very good CDF managers and not very good members of parliament. So long as you can run your CDF properly, you don't need to do anything national. You don't need to do anything that took you to parliament, what the constitution talks about it. So to the extent that Raila Odinga really wants the NGCDF to be done away with, and so that we liberate parliament to actually work fully, I support him. But I sit at a place where I know that Raila Odinga never does things just because he's doing them. A lot of times he doesn't just do them because he loves Kenya. I think number one, Raila is trying to recreate himself. He's trying to rebrand himself. Number one, he's lost, of course, a little bit of the base that supported him. His legacy is on trial. His party is in shambles. They are now answering each other. And Raila, of all the people, actually has to stand up in funerals to explain policy, to explain leadership and everything. That never used to happen in ODM. So I'm thinking in a way of rebranding himself and recreating himself, he wants to create a sibling rivalry, and then he will sit in between as the referee or the judge. But in all that, the National Assembly and the Senate will be fighting. And that way, Raila, quote unquote, the enigma, will be recreating himself. Whereas strategically it makes sense, but I know there is political fruits with which he actually has seen and he wants to reap. He wants to rebrand himself. And what a better way of having two houses fighting, and then you are the one sitting in between, then you are telling the people, I am in control. He has begun his journey to rebrand for purposes of 2027.
Do you agree with that?
Anyway, I have listened to Maliba, but Maliba, I know Raila more than you do. Raila is a person who has a lot of energy when he wants to have his way on any issue. That energy today was taken to the Senate. It was taken to the Senate, not that it is the Senate that is going to do away with the CDF. It was taken to the Senate so as to gaslight the MPs.
Okay.
He wanted the MPs to believe, you know. So I know him. He's got energy to get what he wants through. If he today decided that he wants this place closed down, he will work on it day and night until it is closed down. But let me take you to the CDF issue. If there is anything I have agreed with Raila Odinga 100%, it's the issue of CDF. And to a large extent, I have agreed with Maliba when he's saying CDF killed our parliament. But you see, we have allowed the MPs to go back to the countryside to tell the electorate that the government and whoever else wants to remove CDF. Nobody wants to remove that CDF from the people. We want to remove CDF from the control of members of parliament because they are using it to buy votes, they are using it to reward friends and relatives and those who voted for him, they are using it to control the people, and then they are abdicating their duty of oversight. If it is the MPs who are supposed to oversight the executive on how they use the resources of this country, we cannot again put the resources of this country in their hands to control. Who will oversight them? That is why I agree with Raila on this. That is why I agree with Maliba on this. But we have allowed them to go back to the countryside purporting to be doing
public
participation. But instead of asking the correct question, instead of bringing the correct debate, they are saying, is it right to remove CDF or leave it there? It is not. They are not asking the correct questions. CDF can remain by any other name. That budget can remain by any other name. But let it reach the people through another route, not through the MPs. Okay. That is what ought to happen.
All right. You'll have your parting shot before he has the final word as we conclude.
I will have my parting shot?
Right now?
Right now.
Yes.
I think I just wanted to speak to what has actually been happening this week.
Yeah.
Somehow we missed to touch on it.
Kamata?
No, the Tanzanian issue.
Okay, sure.
I think clearly, first of all, there are people who are asking, have all our problems locally been solved? Why are we having our activists and our lawyers doing work elsewhere? It's important to understand that we are outsourcing the older activists, because at home they've actually ensured that we have got a new crop, especially the Gen Zs, who can hold fort properly. So when Martha Karua goes to Uganda, William Tunga is going to Tanzania, those are the older folk now. We are, we have got capacity glut, so we are giving out. Secondly, of course, people are talking about, and there's been this sentiment that Tanzanians feel that we can allow them to handle their issues alone. I think they miss the spirit of Mzee Nyerere and the Pan-Africanism. Wherever there was a problem in Africa, Tanzania had an interventionist streak. They were in Uganda when Idi Amin was causing problem. They invaded and got to Kampala. There was a problem in Uganda. They went to help Ugandans. When the South Africans were fighting for their independence, South Africans were there. They helped them. The South Africans didn't tell them, you sit home and do whatever you want to do. When Mozambique, in Frelimo, they were there, SWAPO. So no one has actually reached out and dealt with other people's problems more than Tanzania. And it wouldn't be so bad if we now, seated here, look at some of the challenges they have, and like I've told you, we can send them a little bit of the glut in capacity that we have to go and help them. So the issue of saying that we are poking our nose into other people's business is not true. It was Nyerere's spirit, it is Pan-Africanism as advanced by Tanzanians. So we are actually, a few of our people can actually go in as advisors to, and that is what I would call a train and advice role. So it's not a problem that our people are going out there. But generally, we also have to look at it from a point where it speaks it speaks to issues that people don't want to actually address. Like, for example, there are two things here. Either Tanzania has infiltrated Nairobi so much that they can make a decision that mirrors exactly what the regime in Nairobi will do, or somebody in Nairobi gave Dar es Salaam the list of the people to allow in or not. I am more inclined to actually support the second option, that somebody in Nairobi at immigration created a list of the people who are going through the airport and sent them to Tanzania so that then they can be stopped. Otherwise, there is no coincidence how you allow Maraga and you leave out Mutunga. And even holding Boniface Mwangi for all that long, it's like they told Tanzanians, huyu anatusumbua sana, mtushikilie yeye siku kidogo kwanza.
And he says he's been tortured.
Yes, that's what I'm actually saying. So Tanzania were just an agent of somebody in Nairobi. It is impossible to actually tell me that Tanzania somehow knew whom to screen out. There were so many people going in. As in somebody in Nairobi was doing that. And even the torture Boniface has actually gone through, Tanzanians have actually done it on behalf of somebody in Nairobi.
Odoyo, coming to you, I mean, he raises quite...
You know, I tell you, when you tell me that you don't understand how Maraga was allowed to go through and then Mutunga not allowed.
Yeah.
I first knew about Mutunga, Karua, Khalid Hussein, and Hanifa from the streets. You are not there when Karua was in the streets. You are not there when Mutunga was in the streets. Those four are well-known activists. That is why Maraga, who has never been known to be an activist, was allowed through very easily. But as for your friend Boniface Mwangi, I don't think you have seen the videos of how he was rude to those policemen in Tanzania. I think he forgot for a moment that he was in Nairobi. He was in a foreign land. And we must also understand that every country have their different traditions, different laws, different constitutions, and different policies of dealing with issues.
What about transnational politics? I mean, it's still under EAC at the end of the day.
I know, but there is no single law. There is no single law that is binding all the East African communities together. And I can tell you for free, they were very lucky they were treated that way. And I saw the media and everybody was reporting they have been deported. Nobody deported them. They were denied entry. And then they were saying they were detained. Nobody detained them. When you are denied entry and you are still waiting for your flight to Nairobi,
but let him finish so that you can have a rebuttal. Yes, finish your point before he sort of jumps in.
So we cannot say that they were detained. Nobody detained them. Because you are not saying that the moment you have been denied entry, there is a flight to take you back to your country. Let me tell you what Karua has done. When Karua, immediately he ended the last general election, she was dying for activism. Because she almost reaches, let me not say that on air.
Please don't.
Because of activism. So he went with Azimio onto the roads. Immediately Azimio ended and demonstrations were no longer on the Azimio side. She defected to her own original party and entered the Wamunyoro clan and was in the streets with the Gen Zs. Mutunga and Karua were addressing political rallies online every day. When the Gen Z activism ended, she jumped to Uganda. She was on BCJ's activism. When that one cooled a bit, she jumps to TZ. Wait, if there would be one in Somalia or Ethiopia, she will be running there for activism. And I think what that lady did was the thing I would myself do. There's a time that some people came to visit the president, and there was a lot of noise that those people are known criminals. These are known activists. These are known street protesters. And if you don't want street protests in Tanzania, because it leads to destruction of property, block them from getting to Tanzania. Tanzania has a bigger population than Kenya. If they wanted to sympathize with one of their own, they would do. If that guy was popular, he had 50 million Tanzanians to go and see him in jail, to go and see him in court, to stand with him.
You have a burning point.
Number one, we have got a Jumuiya. We are citizens of the Jumuiya. I just want to remind him of that. And we actually have got a cross relationship. CCM has got friends here. Chadema has friends here. Some of us have got relatives on the other side. The people in Tanzania cannot defend the borders drawn in Berlin during the Berlin conference as if they were there. None of us was in Berlin when these boundaries were drawn. So no one in Nairobi or Dar es Salaam can pretend to actually defend the boundaries and these definitions as if they sat on the table that defined these things. All families are actually split. Look at this, Heche, for example. Heche is a Kuria. In Kenya, the Kuria are related closer to the Kisis. But realistically, if you were to look at my people, the Wanga, the Kuria are actually Wanga. They know each other, they speak to each other. So these people defending the boundaries drawn by a white man as if they were there, as in the people defending these particular boundaries were not there. Secondly, there is a lazy way of doing politics in Tanzania where, for them, it's about a scarecrow, always using Nairobi as a scarecrow. Wameharibu nchi yao. Wameharibu nchi gani? And this is the place they come to. There's always the people in CCM, for example, and the leadership in Tanzania should actually find a better way of defining their country, comparing it with Nairobi and always demonizing Nairobi to ensure that you scare your people into towing a certain line is lazy politics. they also need to define their country on its own way. We define Kenya in our own terms. So this idea of making Kenya a scarecrow and always telling itaharibika, wameharibu kwao na hizo vitu zingine zote, that is lazy politics. That be as it is, as in they can do much better than that. Right. By the way, there are other guys who actually are like, Wasira for example. I've seen Wasira talk about Kenya so eloquently. Wasira is the age of my grandfather, my late grandfather. Actually.
All right, we're out of time.
We cannot allow these guys actually scaring Tanzanians. And now with the open world that we have in technology, you can only switch off Twitter X for a certain period. You can try to cover up, but people see these things. The exchange of ideas is out there. And there is nothing wrong when he says that non-activists, activism is not a crime even in Tanzania. Okay. It's not a crime. Activism is not a crime. Two, these are people who are coming in as observers. They had not broken any law. At least I know Kina Mutunga had not broken. They had just arrived. Unless in Tanzania, arriving at the airport is a crime. They had done no crime. So for Boni, as for shouting, I know rude Tanzanians myself. I do business. I've gone down there. I've engaged down there with them. I know people who are more rude in Tanzania than Boniface Mwangi. Being rude does not mean that you'll be beaten up. They have got laws also.
All right, I'll let you have in 1 minute, sir. Your parting shot.
I just wanted to say, Kenya belongs to all of us. We must be able to share its resources equally. But I want to tell Maliba, if he wants to test if those borders are true and working, go and commit a crime in Tanzania and see which court you'll be taken. Come and commit one in Kenya and see which court. Then you will know those borders are legal and are working.
I don't want to go.
I think that's a really good place to
crime here. I don't want. Why should I go and commit it in a foreign land?
That's a good place to end this conversation. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Maliba Arnold, Party Leader, Progress Plus Alliance, and Odoyo Owidi, Political Analyst. On behalf of Jesse Rogers and I, Ashley Missouri, have a good night.